Love is a complicated concept. It has a numerous amount of consequences and feelings. Love can make you feel excited and cheery, or it can make you feel confused or miserable. Oftentimes, these emotions make us want to isolate ourselves from others, leaving us alone. Unfortunately, some people fall in love with the idea they made of a person than the person themselves, which leaves each other both broken. Sylvia Plath wrote about the obsession with her lover and defeated the whole purpose of the relationship in Mad Girl's Love Song. Emily Bronte and Walt Whitman wrote about being alone and isolated in this big world. Bronte writes about how she used her fantasy stories to escape from reality, and Whitman writes about his struggle to fit in no matter what he tries to do in his perspective and metaphoric way of a spider. Despite each being about different experiences, love and loneliness are strongly intertwined because one can lead to the other. Mad Girl's Love Song is about the unrealistic version the speaker of the poem had of their lover, causing the relationship to fall out. The speaker of Plath's poem claims to be confused about what happened with her former lover, who seems to have lost interest in her. Plath's poem portrays an almost obsessive vision of love. However, in relation to her, many people think that it has something to do with her own battle of depression, as the poem is about love, loss, and mental illness. The repeating line that says, "I think I made you up inside my head," implies that she created this unrealistic version of her lover, that it defeated the whole purpose of true love. My favorite metaphor in this poem is "all the world drops dead." How I interpreted that line was that she thought so highly of the idea of this person that when they stopped caring about her, her thoughts started to conflict with each other. Another literary device is the irony of the poem's title. Despite the fact that it has elements of a love song and touches on themes of romance and love, the feeling that is eventually described as heartbreak instead of love. The hyperbole of the entire poem is that assuming that the speaker did not create her lover and that she is only distraught over being rejected, then the title's description of her as mad is exaggerated. She's instead mentally unstable from a sad experience. Lastly, the tone of the poem sounds regretful and at fault of the whole situation, especially in the last stanza of the first line. "I should have loved a thunderbird instead," which is also a metaphor because unlike her lover, thunderbirds come back after a long period of time. The idea of love in The Tempest is that Shakespeare describes it as a force that brings people together, whether it's romantic or family love. In Plath's poem, she describes her love as an obsession with her partner, and although it is not an intense obsession, Ferdinand claimed he would do anything for Miranda, despite only knowing her for less than 24 hours, because of how beautiful she is. He also wanted to marry her, too. Come Hither Child is from the perspective of a made-up character that Emily and her sisters, who were also into literature, made up, remembering a moment in their youth when they encountered loneliness and isolation in Eula's halls. Emily was shy and introverted, and her own experiences inspired the view of the character she created. It is clear that Emily Bronte was able to turn a fantastical tale into a substantial work of art that effectively and affectingly examines the depths of human loneliness. The speaker of the poem is in misery, and to deal with it, she seems to cycle between isolation and denial. However, none of this is able to ease the speaker's pain. The poem seems to be saying that the speaker's loneliness and misery are simply made worse by escaping through seclusion and denial. The character in the poem is based on Emily herself. She was described as a shy and introverted person who isolated herself from the world. Bernard Marx from Brave New World has also been described the same way. An insecure, lonely, and isolated man. Emily Bronte made up this fantasy world in order to escape, and it is somewhat similar to Gonzalo's utopia in Brave New World. He didn't necessarily try to escape into that world, but it was the perfect fantasy. A Noiseless Patient Spider is about a spider starting its web by working on it in an effort to make the web stick to something. It is firing it in numerous directions. Walt Whitman compares the spider in the poem's second half to his own lost spirit in search of direction. The spider and Walt Whitman's mind are juxtaposed all throughout the entire poem, which works as a metaphor. Both are lonely and looking for a place to go and someone or something to connect with. Walt Whitman personifies the spider in his description of it as a noiseless patient spider.
fact that people, not spiders, are typically thought of as quiet and patient makes the spider seem much more human. In order to enhance the impact of the metaphor he uses in the poem, he does this. When he describes the spider as having empty, huge surrounds, he again employs alliteration. This is done to illustrate how alone and isolated the spider is.
The spider in the poem is in this huge world and is making every attempt to make the webbing by shooting its webbing left, right, and center. This is a metaphor for Walt Whitman's struggle to put himself out there, leaving him alone in this huge world. Like John the Savage from Brave New World, he is treated like an outsider because of the actions of his mom. He tries so desperately to be part of the ceremony in the Savage Reservation, but he doesn't fit in, because his mother is known for sleeping with many men and needs to live in the New World state. And he doesn't fit in at the New World state because he is a savage. John is an outsider no matter where he goes, just like the spider. Although I'm still young, I don't think I will ever understand the concept of love. I mean, after a devastating year of failed relationships, I've learned I unfortunately fell in love with the idea and not the true feeling. Because of this, I got miserable and isolated myself from the world, and when I wanted to reach out again, it was hard because it had been too long since I've last done it. I then came to the conclusion that even though you're going to experience heartbreak and isolation, it's part of living and what helps us move forward in life to become a better version of ourselves. You can't be happy without being sad.